Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Burke Cullinane, and today we're going to talk about one lens trick called lens whacking. Lens whacking is a trick that you can use in both photo and video, and it's a cool effect that you can use in a really creative way. So what is lens whacking? Well, lens whacking is an effect that you can use by taking your lens off your camera and wiggling it around in front of your sensor. You can move the lens further or closer away from your sensor, you can tilt it side to side. There's really a lot of things that you can do with this technique. So there's three things that this effect does to your image while using this technique. The first thing that you're probably going to notice is the focusing. You can get some really cool focusing effects, and you can almost turn your lens into a macro lens by doing this effect. So the second thing you're going to notice is this flaring or film burn style effect that's going to happen to your image. Basically, the reason that this happens is because you're allowing more light to get into your sensor. Light is also reflecting off the glass from your lens. The third and final thing that happens to your image is sometimes you'll get this weird framing that happens around your image. And sometimes you don't really want this, but sometimes it's really cool. It really depends on how you tilt and move the lens in front of your sensor. So now you're wondering, all right, Burke, that's great. That sounds awesome, but how do I do this? So when doing this effect, most people recommend that you use a 50mm lens, but you don't need a 50mm lens. You can use a zoom lens. My assumption that they're recommending this is because it's a smaller lens, typically a pancake lens, so it's easier to hold in your hand. So step one to creating this effect is going to be removing your lens from your camera. You're going to want to hold your camera in your dominant hand and the lens in your least dominant hand. Once the lens is removed, you're going to want to set the focus ring on your lens to infinity. This is just going to help you keep your subject in focus. If your subject is closer to your camera, you do want to move the lens further away from the sensor. If your subject is further away from the camera, you're going to want to move the lens closer to the sensor. Once your lens is detached from your camera, you're holding it correctly, and your focus ring is set to infinity, the rest is really just playing around with this technique. Messing with your focus, seeing what effects you can get from keeping the lens further away from the sensor or bringing it closer to the sensor, or like I said before, moving the lens from left to right in front of the sensor or tilting it away from the sensor. There's really a lot of cool effects that you can get with this technique. Also, one thing to take into consideration is that the lighting of your scene is going to affect how your image looks. If your scene is brighter, more light is going to get into your sensor, and that's going to give a more dreamy effect. If you're shooting at night, you can get some really cool lens flare effects. There's really a lot that you can do with this technique. Mess around with your focal length. Mess around with how you hold the lens. Mess around with how you move around the lens. It's gonna feel awkward at first, but if you practice this a lot, you can get some really, really cool effects. But that's the art of lens whacking. If you like this video, hit that like button. Leave me a comment, let me know what you think. And if you haven't already, subscribe, and we'll see you soon.